Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Living with Illness. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm really glad you're here, whether you're listening for the first time or you've been with me for multiple episodes. My hope is that this podcast will help people feel like they are not alone, and since so many of us do struggle with things like mental illness, chronic illness, trauma, grief, or loneliness, and challenges that others may never see. I know that sometimes the hardest part is not necessarily the illness itself, but the belief that you're the only one going through it. And I am really glad that you are here listening today. Before we start the show today, I want to take a moment to talk about a couple things. Number one, I just want to give a huge thank you to all you guys, because we're almost to 600 downloads, and I know that may not seem like a lot, but it is. I've been watching it go up higher and higher over the weeks, and I'm just so thrilled, so thankful, because I know that the show isn't perfect. I know the sound isn't perfect, and I'm just so grateful to get the chance to hopefully help you guys with more education on these topics, but also, as I've said many times, I don't want people to feel alone. I know what it's like to feel alone. And I know how heartbreaking that can feel. And so we've also reached 29 countries, which is amazing. I didn't expect this podcast to go so far around the world, to almost every continent. There's only one continent that is not yet, but we're gonna get there. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys so much. That my blog, Healthy Minds, Healthy Bodies, has almost hit 4,000 views as well. This is just an incredible moment for me. Like I said, I wasn't quite expecting this, but I hope it keeps growing and keeps reaching people who need to hear, whatever it is they need to hear on this podcast. Anyways, I do want to let you guys know that I have a new website out called The Holistic Ecosystem, and it kind of is a tie to everything and what I am trying to accomplish, to teach people as a whole how to live a more holistic life, even if they're busy. Something I've been working on personally. I'm super excited about it. You can find it in the show notes. I also have something set up where if you'd like to help with supporting the show and you don't know how, there's a couple things that I added. Number one, I really do need podcast equipment, and I've linked in the show notes to my Amazon wish list, so that if you're interested in showing support, if you want to show your support that way, you can always do that. I've also linked in the show notes a possibility of, if you want to donate something financially but you don't want to buy a t-shirt, which is another option we have, to help the show grow, to get it to where I can interview guests and such, that's greatly appreciated. 10% of everything that I make goes to a nonprofit in my local area called the Workshop Counseling and Community Center. So anyways, also coming up in the fall, starting in the fall, I'm going to be putting out a digital wellness magazine, and there's going to be a lot of different topics covered. I'm going to add some recipes, but something I really want to do is I want to add people's stories of their wellness journey, and it can be anything, because this is focused on a holistic lifestyle. I want things to do with physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, intellectual, whatever your journey may be. I would love to add your story. And so what I'm going to do is add in the show notes also a place on my website where you can contact and submit a submission of your story, and hopefully we get a few going, and then we're going to go from there. I have lots of things planned with it. I'm still working on the outline, but I'm super excited about it. It's going to be, I think, $7.99 for a fall edition, and then in the winter, the spring and the summer. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm working on putting it together now. If you guys want to add things like a recipe, your story, please submit that to me and I'm going to get that added. Anyways, now into the episode. Today we are going to talk about harmful and helpful stress management. If you didn't get a chance to listen to the last episode we did, we talked about the types of stress. We talked about distress and eustress, the more negative and the more positive types of stress. And we're going to talk today about how to manage it. So, of course, we can't eliminate stress. That's not possible. But we can learn to choose better ways of coping with it, how to respond to it. And so today we're going to talk about the harmful and helpful ways of managing it. So let's dive right in. Number one, the harmful ways of dealing with it. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people do is just straight up avoiding problems or procrastinating. It's not uncommon for people when they're overwhelmed to just say, oh, I'll deal with this later, or I'll deal with this later. And that is definitely a coping skill. So another one that some people might do is isolating from other people. And this has a lot of negative consequences to it. I'm actually doing, my next blog post is going to be on this topic, basically. So another way of harmful way of managing stress is going to be things like excessive alcohol or substance use. Of course, if you go to a psychiatrist regularly or a therapist, you know this, and it's just something a lot of people struggle with, one or the other. I have a history of drinking too much, and I have to be really careful with that, so you're not alone. It happens. I've been doing really well personally, so I hope that's an encouragement to you. We have things like emotional eating and skipping meals, also disordered eating as a whole, and of course I'm no expert on eating disorders, and I'm not here to play dietitian and whatnot necessarily, but I do focus a lot on this, on my blog in general, on healthy eating options and such. And so if you struggle with this, I really recommend you get in with a dietitian, a therapist, a psychiatrist, or at least a primary care physician that can help you with handling this better. Even disordered eating is not super healthy, and so I really encourage you to get some help if you're needing it. So this is something else that some people do, and that is overworking without allowing time for ourselves to recover. Finances these days, especially in the USA, is it's hard. I'm not oblivious to that at all. And we can get in a habit of overworking to not only deal with the finances, but also just to keep ourselves busy, and to avoid whatever's going on. So, another thing that I think a lot of people do is excessive time scrolling on social media, and I definitely have been guilty of this. I've been working on this a lot, but it happens. It's easy to use it as a way to distract ourselves from everything else going around us. Now, I do think that it's okay to use social media to have some moments of a break and to relax and whatnot. And this is a controversial topic. Some people think that it's just all bad for you, and I personally just think that you can use it to help de-stress at the end of a day, or even in the middle of the day. You know, there's something relaxing about looking at videos and stuff. The big problem is when you're spending 3 and 4 and 5 hours and such, just, you know, doom scrolling through social media, and avoiding life with that. So another thing that people can do is to ignore sleep and self-care. Now, these are kind of a couple of different things rolled into one, but ignoring sleep is not going to help. You're not going to have the cognitive function that you really need to be able to deal with life. You're not going to be able to look at things more. A term in DBT skills called wise mind. You're not going to be able to be in the middle of both rational and emotional. It'll make it very hard. You'll probably end up more emotional. And so anyways, just remember that ignoring sleep is not going to help overall with the things you're dealing with. They're also ignoring our self-care. Now, self-care really is, there's a lot of people that like to look at it and break it down in different ways and make it, you know, kind of rigid and whatnot. But really, self-care is exactly that. It's taking care of yourself. So, things like showering, bathing and stuff, or brushing teeth, exercising, ignoring that, ignoring your needs for food. We've already talked about this, and water, but also things like fun and enjoyment. Sometimes when we're stressed, especially like, for instance, about finances, we ignore doing things that are fun because we don't want to spend money, etc. And unfortunately, ignoring self-care has a lot of repercussions because eventually we get burned out. And so I highly recommend that even when you're stressed, you don't ignore your self-care. You don't ignore your need for fun. You don't ignore doing something for yourself, even if it's as simple as getting your favorite drink from your favorite place. Non-alcoholic, of course, is what I promote. But if you drink responsibly. So self-care. Ignoring self-care does not end well. Every person I know that ignores it over time just gets, burnt out. And I mean, I've had plenty of those times myself. I've had plenty of times where I ignore going out and just having a little bit of fun in some way or another, or just also really even things at home. I mean, there's lots of ways that we can do self-care at home, outside of our hygiene things. We can, some of us like to read, and this is getting more into the helpful ways of managing it, but so we'll go through that in just a minute. But let's not ignore our self-care as a way of managing stress, because what's going to actually happen is we're going to get more stressed. And the last one on this list is going to be bottling up our emotions instead of expressing them in healthy ways. Now, that really could be a lot of different things. Some people say anger is bad for you, and I highly disagree. I think anger is an emotion, and we should not look at it as good or bad, but as a helpful tool to figure out what's going on with us and what's bothering us, etc. And expressing them in healthy ways. Of course, it's okay to have emotions. We are all made to have emotions and mood and whatnot, and it's not that we want to like I say, ignore them, bottling them up. We don't want to do that. We want to instead find healthy ways of expressing them. And that could be a lot of things. That can be journaling. Let's talk about, as part of that, and even the self-care, let's talk about the helpful ways of managing stress, and let's just start with those things. So, everybody has different stressors, and especially the more harmful stress. So some of these things that we can do for helping with stress management is, so some people like to clean. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then some people like to bake and cook. There is nothing wrong with those things. Now, obviously, we don't want to take that to the extreme and become unhealthy with how we're eating. And I do not personally think that, just as a disclaimer in stating that I don't think that any one specific food is a bad thing to have. I know there's a lot of people who will say, don't have this, don't have this, don't have this. My biggest thing has always been and always will be, moderation is key. If you like chocolate and you're really stressed out and that's a comfort food for you and you really need that, go have it. Okay? That's okay. But anyways, so cooking, baking, cleaning, some people find it very helpful. Having animals. I have 2 dogs. You might can hear them occasionally in the background. And they're really great for stress management. Petting them, walking them twice a day. That's been my goal. About 10 to 15 minutes twice a day. I get out, take them first thing in the morning, and then in the evening before we wind down. And that's good for a lot of things. Number one, we're all getting we're all getting exercise, all 3 of us, and that has been helping me because it's part of my routine. For those who don't know, I have autism and OCD, so it's kind of helpful for my routine and my rituals just to get out, walk around my apartment complex. That gets them some exercise twice a day. They were having some trouble with breathing just because they had not had exercise for a while with me being a truck driver, and now I'm not a truck driver. And so it's been really great for them, really great for me. But also having them here at home is just fantastic. I get to take care of them. I love taking care of something and someone. Of course, I have a partner and I do my best with them as well. And so taking care of animals is a great responsibility if you are needing something to shift your focus on. They have needs. They're very much like children. You need to learn their emotional needs, their physical needs, how much they eat, how much they need to drink. Of course, vet bills and all that. So if that's going to add to your financial stress, that may not be the best option. But there also is a difference between big dogs and small dogs. I actually have a Yorkie, and then alongside him, a Black Lab Blue Heeler mix. So one of them is about medium size, the other one is small. And that's okay. Well, actually, my Black Lab Blue Heeler mix probably falls between medium and large. He's about 55 pounds. So anyways, neither here nor there. Animals can be really great. So another thing that I just got into is taking care of plants. Now, I have 3 plants right now, and I plan to get a couple more. One of them is a snake plant. One of them is a pothos, a neon pothos. And then, a lucky bamboo. All 3 of them are super fun. I love having them. None of them require a lot of taking care of right now. They're, in general, you don't want to overwater plants. And they're still getting adjusted to the transition of being at the store, and now they're being at home. But this can be a great thing. There's also a lot of research that talks about how being in nature can be really good for you. So that was also one of the reasons I got them, is because they're green, they're great to look at, they're beautiful. So you might consider a plant, or plants if you know what you're doing or you want to learn. The internet is a great tool. There also is a lot of YouTube channels out there which are dedicated now to talking about taking care of plants and stuff. So I recommend, if you have the capacity, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and find a plant that you can take care of, that is easy to take care of for under $10, under $15, something like that. So if that's inside your budget, I highly recommend. It can have a lot of great things for you. One of the biggest things I've learned is don't overwater. So find out what your plant needs and then go from there. So let's talk about some things more with calming your mind and body. So one of the best ways to manage stress is deep breathing exercises, grounding techniques, something called progressive muscle relaxation, and then we've got mindfulness and meditation. And if you are into it, prayer and other spiritual practices may be really helpful as well. Now, as far as deep breathing exercises go, you can do them on your own. There are quite a few different methods. One of the ones I like is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 7 seconds, and then you breathe out your mouth for 8 seconds. You would breathe in your nose for the 4 seconds. There's other ones. You can look on YouTube as well for more of those options. And then the grounding techniques, one of the best ones that you can do is look, so you're going to use all 5 of your senses. Now there's different, I can't remember the exact one, but basically the idea is there's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. You're going to look for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Now, there's also a lot of other grounding techniques. You can have objects in your hand to play with. You can focus on eating something or drinking something. This is a great way to get some water, to have a snack. Those can be some grounding techniques and stuff as well. Okay. Now, another one, progressive muscle relaxation. I highly recommend looking on YouTube for videos on this. Basically, the idea with it is you're going to tense up a muscle, and then you're going to hold it for about 3 seconds and release it. And then you do that about 3 to 5 times. And you start either at your feet or your head, and you work your way the opposite direction. So if you start at your head, you work your way down to your feet. If you start at your feet, you work your way up to your head. Some people say you should go one way specifically. Personally, I don't. It doesn't matter. You're still working on getting out the stress, and this can be really helpful. I've actually used this quite a bit. And it hasn't been on my most recent list of things to do, but it has been very helpful. And the more you do it to practice it, the more likely you'll be to remember it when you're stressed out. So, for instance, if traffic is a major thing for you, you can actually be in your car and do this. So there is a lot of ways that you can use it's short PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. You can do this also sitting or standing or lying down. So that's one of the great reasons why I love progressive muscle relaxation. Mindfulness and meditation, people get these things a bit mixed up, and I'm not going to get into them specifically. There also is mindfulness meditation. So basically the difference is, the best way I can explain is, mindfulness is about being aware of what's in your immediate surroundings, what you're thinking, what's on your body. Part of this is kind of a grounding technique because you're focusing on it. Meditation is going to be the goal is to empty out your mind with just straight up meditation. And then mindfulness meditation is actually, the whole goal with it is to focus on not judging yourself. As a thought comes in, you let it be there, you think it, you notice it, and then you release it, and you just continue to do the deep breathing and stuff. And you can find YouTube videos on this just as much as everything else. So, of course, let's move on to physical activity. So, of course, there's going to be, the top thing is going to be regular physical exercise activity. For some people, that may just be walking. Some people, that may just be stretching, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with those things. If that's what you can do, that's totally fine. Stretching, yoga, totally great. I love yoga. You could do it. If you can do intense exercise, that's even better, because it's better for your heart and your body as a whole. But if you can't, that's totally okay. Right now, I don't do extreme intense exercise because the job I have requires me already to have a lot of lifting and stuff and a lot of movement. So I don't get out and do intense, rigorous exercise because I also just don't have the time or energy at this moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. I say listen to your body, and right now that's not the place that I'm at, but it is where I'm working towards. So one of the best ways to help with us managing stress is going to be prioritizing our quality sleep. Now, I know sleep is one of those things that we know we need it, but we don't necessarily prioritize sleep hygiene. And I highly recommend that you do that. The best way to get quality sleep is to set up your room for good sleep. Make it dark, make it cool, and there's a lot of people that say no noise. I will say that I sleep with like rain sounds in the background because that's what helps me sleep. A lot of people who have been through trauma, as well as a lot of people with ADHD, need something in the background. So don't listen to your body, whatever you need. If you actually have a hard time going to sleep, you might want to try some like nature sounds or rain sounds. Look it up on YouTube. You can find those. Some people like to do mindfulness and meditation before bed. That's great. You want to come up with a good sleep hygiene. Basically, before you go to sleep, what your winding down time, what you do. You could do things like read. You can do things like a puzzle or something. Just something to help quiet your mind. About 1 to 3 hours in advance, you want to start focusing on winding down. Of course, if you take medications at night, just that's part of your winding down routine. Figuring out how early you need to take your medicine so that it doesn't make you drag the next day. That can be really beneficial. For me personally, I need to take my medicine about 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. so that I could be up at 6 a.m. And that's because of my work schedule. So just a reminder that whatever you're doing before sleep is just as important as actually in the sleep itself. Okay, so another thing is going to be eating balanced meals. You cannot expect to feel your best if you do not get balanced meals. And what that means is you need carbohydrates, protein, and fats. You also need things like vegetables and fruits, seeds, nuts, and legumes, and etc. And the reason for that is because they all have different nutrients that we need. Berries are very good and important for your body, and part of that is the antioxidants that are in them. So get a balanced meal. And you can look on different websites for that. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. But I will link some for you. I personally recommend looking at Harvard Health. They're a great one to look at, but there are also some, if you prefer more international websites, there's going to be tons out there to find ways for having balanced meals. So look into that so that you can help with your stress, because it does make a difference. When your body is fueled the right way, the best way, then you can manage stress better because you're able to think better. You're able to use your body more efficiently at its full capacity. So eating balanced meals are very important. Staying hydrated. You need electrolytes probably to a certain degree, but the biggest thing is going to be water. How much water you drink depends on your body size. For instance, so the recommendation is take your body weight and then divide that in half, and that's how many ounces of water you need. So for instance, if you're 200 pounds, you would need about 100 ounces of water to have be at your best. Now that varies depending on if you're doing intense exercise, if you have a job that's in heat, etc. That does vary. So some other things, basic things: journaling, talking with friends and family, a therapist and counselor, Practicing gratitude, if you can think of things you're grateful for every day, that's a really great way of of managing stress. Allowing yourself to experience emotions and not judge them. That's very important. This goes into DBT skills, mindfulness, and non-judgment of what you feel, what you think, etc. Just managing them as they come. If you get overwhelmed by large tasks, breaking those down into smaller, manageable steps. Sometimes what I do is I look at the whole thing and then say, okay, what's the most important thing? And I focus on that now. That's a very simple answer. That may not work for everything, but sometimes just looking at the large thing and looking at it in how can I break this down can be really, really helpful. I think another one that is not focused on enough, but definitely important, is setting healthy boundaries. And this, it really, every single person that you have a relationship with, your boundaries are going to look different for one person to the next. And of course, for instance, if you have a partner, if you're married, whatever, that person is going to have different boundaries than, say, your friend, or your children, if you have them. And there are different types of boundaries. You've got time, physical, mental, emotional, money, etc. It's broken down into 12 different types of boundaries. So learning what you need to set as a boundary with different people is very important to managing your stress. Because if you've got someone who you have no boundaries for and they stress you out a lot, then you're going to continue to be stressed, and you may need to look into setting some boundaries. And if you're unsure of what that looks like, I really highly recommend, of course, talking to a therapist or counselor or someone that you trust that is not that person who can give you unbiased feedback. But also, if you have a really good friend who understands whatever is going on with that person, if it's a different person, you can talk to them too. Sometimes they can be our best person because they know us, they know what we need. So just stuff like that. And then some other things that we could do to manage stress, which is more making time for recovery, is things like spending time in nature, hobbies and creative activities, listening to music, if you write music, even better, read a book, spend some time with some supportive people, and I think this is the biggest thing, is setting regular time for rest and recovery. Instead of trying to put it into place around everything else, you got to make it a priority for every day, especially and then at least once a week of getting a day where you get to rest and recover. So the biggest thing is that we need to remember is that stress is part of life. It's not something we can necessarily control if it's there or not. It is there. The biggest thing is just how we manage it. We want to avoid those things that we talked about in the beginning that are harmful. And we want to do more of the things that we just talked about that are helpful. So I've been focusing on this a lot. Okay. Of how can I manage my stress, and getting my walks in the morning and evening has been really helpful. So I know it's difficult to figure it out sometimes because we're like, well, what can we do? Whatever. Take it one step at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. Focus on one or two things you can do. Once you've got that down, then maybe you can add something else. Just remember that if you've been managing your stress with the more harmful ways, you can always change that to now doing the more helpful ways. I hope these tips help you, and you can find more on the website that I have created called The Holistic Ecosystem, and I'll have a link directly to 100 coping skills in the show notes for you guys. Thank you for spending this time with me today and for allowing me to share a part of my story. If there's one thing I hope that you take away from this episode, it's that you are not your story. Your story's not over. No matter how many setbacks you have faced, no matter how many things you have struggled, and no matter how impossible it may feel right now or at another time, there is a possibility for healing. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your trauma. And you are not your worst day. Your life matters. You matter. And your story is also being written the way mine is. And until next time, I hope you will take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and remember that you don't have to walk this journey alone. Thank you for being here.